Okay, so this is going to be how to make this bottle into a stand-up. I got permission. She originally had asked me to do this as an ornament, but I'd already done that before for her in a video via a class, and so she was like thrilled that I was going to do this. So what is interesting that I didn't notice before is that this person has added rows. And they were probably told by the store to add these rows. You can do it without the rows, but it's tough because it's so thin and you're just not going to get a lot of good shape. So we'll try to turn a few under, but we don't want to turn too many under because just like with round ornaments or any of my shaped things that are specifically 3D things, number one, they won't go together correctly if they do that to one of my lobster traps. Number two, I think it'll just lend itself to be a better shape. We don't want a lot of thick stitching being pulled around to the back and having a huge gutter between our foam piece in the middle. I'm still debating on, I went and bought a few different kind of bolts. I use bolts for weights because I'm not sure how thick of a profile we can get away with it being the small bottle. So we'll just go ahead and get started because I really am not sure, because this is the whatever this is kind of bottle of alcohol, because you can tell I really don't drink much of it because I have no idea what this label says even. We're just going to do our standard tick around and do our darting. I find that doing the smaller pieces gusseted, you kind of don't want to go over the 1/2 inch as far as with an ornament, but you'll just never get it to stand up correctly or balanced well if you don't have something. Now, here's the other thing. When you're doing this without the rows, again, tiny profile, and so you're going to have to figure out a way to really weight it heavily if you only do the 1/2 inch, which we can do. That's not an issue. It is just about the stability aspect of it. And if so they want me to do a shaped canvas soup can. That's one of those that says, you know, like it looks like a Campbell soup can, but it is a can of whoop beep. And the thing is when they stitched it, they didn't give it a flat bottom, and so it's a curved can to make it look dimensional just when you look at it. And so they need to know ahead of time, or else you're going to have to add stitches, because if you turn that under to be a flat running bottom so it can be a stand-up, even if it's shapely, it's not going to work, and it's going to be not what they want. It will delete some of their can, you know, the logo and things like that they might not want to lose. But, you know, we're going to have a make it work moment with that one. But this is straight across the bottom, and so you really shouldn't have that hard of a time doing it. How many boxed pieces have you done? So I am doing this video with Christy Reagan. She's also a finisher, and unfortunately we couldn't get her mic to work. Whether it's me or whatever, more than likely it's me. But I'm just going, she's going to be texting us in the chat of Zoom to answer any questions or ask any questions. So as far as finishing goes, have you gotten into doing the gusseted at all? No. Okay. So this is applicable to doing them without a base as well. So you'll be able to finish anything like this. Now she asked you to do them as an ornament or as a stand-up. I thought we were doing a stand-up. I'm sorry. That's okay. I can switch gears real easily. That's not a problem. But I will still include how to do the other so that it's, you know, amenable to everyone. So I'm gonna do that and do that. So I just started recording so I can sync up questions just in case. So I think sometimes the biggest challenge for people doing the boxed pieces is usually how to put the hanger on. And it's just a matter of, there's a couple of ways you can do it with, do you want to, how do I put this? So I do a trick where I use cording, but you could use a ribbon and just do the ribbon. You could do the thing, you could use a piece of trim, or you could use one of the curly Q metal hangers that are so popular right now, and you could just quite literally make a, which I will show you guys. So there really isn't going to be a lot of visible white on this neck. So whether you have it or not, you're still going to do the same thing we always do, which is we steam around, because this is how we get our shape, is we steam all of this over, and then we're going to trace around our bottle. And I am going to elicit the quilting ruler to make sure that, because I noticed that this is a little shifty. It's kind of gone out of blocked, and that's, it happens. No matter what you do, it happens. My daughter took it off the board yesterday for me, and thought it was pretty good. I sprayed it a couple times and did all of that I should. Now, you can see that I can just take this in, and I don't have to do the rounded shape up here at the top for that. If you have the caps that are really bulbous that you need to do, then you'll need to cut right up in to any of these close darts to be able to get that shape. Again, it's a challenge, but by the time you're done with 12, Christy, you'll be, you know, a pro. I don't, you know, I don't know why people think that it is potentially just as easy. I did the fleur-de-lis that were Kate Dickerson, and that's a lot of curves. It's a lot of testing your patience to the very edge of sanity. And especially if you are trying to sew the cording on. It really made me swear a lot. But you do it, you get it done. You know, we as the professional end of it, we kind of just make it work the best that we can. And it's nice when people start trying to do their own finishing, just because they learn that, oh wow, that's really hard, and that's maybe why it didn't turn out exactly the way I thought it did, because of the stitches that were used and things like that. So even if it's just not that you're going to do this finishing for yourself on major projects, you at least know the limitations a little more, and things that are a little more forgiving that people are like, oh, well, I thought that would be a lot harder. And I was like, well, it seems simple enough until you really get into it. But some of the simple things, it's like, yeah, that's not really a thing. The people that want the hard corners, that are just like, I want crisp and pointy, you know, depending on if it's 13 count or 18 count, can be the deciding factor on how pointy they are. And then when cording goes around, it kind of loses its pointy anyway, because just cording being inherently round, it can't give you that really hardcore square. So I still do these with foam core and do the whole beveling thing. You can use mat board if you prefer it. You're going to do it the exact same way. I just like the ability of having the bevel there to shove that back and manipulate it, so if there's too big of a gutter, we still have some leeway. Actually, no, I better do it with this. I was debating on putting my cutting mat back down so I could just use those squares, but it likes to, the water sits on top of it, the steam, and I can't necessarily. So if that is straight, that's our straight mark. Yeah, you just got to be shifted a little bit like that. I'll probably pull the quilting ruler out after I get this shape set on. Now I can tell that this is, because of its sheen, it is not silk and ivory, but silk and ivory inherently does not like to block. So if you ever have one that's super shifty and you're just like can't get it, it's probably with a fiber that just doesn't like it. Okay, trying to get that rolled in sort of as much as the other one. All right, so I don't know if this is how you learn, how you get the shape of your shaped pieces, but this is how I do it, where you just flip it over. Oh, okay, yep, we got your test. It told us it was going to do that today, didn't it? All right. Trying to use the base and the side of this to lose my shift a little bit. I don't know if I'm going to be able to because it's lost that steam. And then we'll see how it looks. So back in the day, the blocking books used to, or any of the books that I read, it used to say to put your needlepoint, block it face down, and yeah. I was like, how do you see the stitches? So I still don't do it that way. Okay. So utilizing, now the hope is this piece of foam core actually square? Might not be. It happens. All right, where's my, did I just have it? I did just have it. Aha. Okay. So if that is straight and that is straight, that's actually pretty good. And that's pretty straight there. Okay. You can see it is not necessarily symmetrical on this side though, but we will attempt to rectify that because I think that's my, yeah, the one wonky size. So you're going to bring it in 1/8 of an inch to accommodate it fitting into the bottle. When you start working with really thin necks, things like that, it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to bend this as I'm working on it. Even if it bends, because sometimes it'll kink, you don't have to worry about that because the back piece is going to support it. So as long as you are mindful of the back piece, you'll be fine. And since I'm eyeballing it, don't be surprised if, see, this side is just going to be, it's a little better. I would be getting so yelled at by my drawing teacher. What's with the hairy lines? No hairy lines. Okay. All right. So the key to doing these shape pieces is that you don't cut the front and the back out at the same time. Okay? Because when you are doing this, and you cut that middle piece, it is very difficult. I know I did not go all the way through that. It's very, very difficult to get that 45-degree angle every time. And my blade is horrible. Hold on. Oh, my kit is ready to go for the next class, so let's hope I just didn't grab one that was just as nasty as the other one. But it shouldn't be. They only used it for one class. Oh no, that's better. So we recently at a class had a woman for the shape class brought in a tiny, tiny picture frame. And I just looked at her and went, really? I don't even have any mat board with me. But we did it with foam core, and it worked out just fine. And it was probably about that wide. It was about a ½ inch wide. And then we bevel it. I mean, I have a couple tricks that I use for doing the Oreo cookie center of this, but I definitely don't think this is for someone that's just learning finishing, because they're like, oh, I can just put a piece of styrofoam in between. Well, yes and no. Let's see how it fits. Well, at least I remembered to plug in my glue gun. So sometimes if you have those ins and outs, I don't always necessarily cut those into the foam core. I actually just let the ins and outs kind of, you're just gluing the tabs down and then necking this area in a little bit and letting the shape of the needlepoint hold it up, because again, it doesn't need the support when it's going to have the back support. So if it's something that's really curvy and that's difficult to cut, and you think you might not have the right shape, it's better to undercut it and then just have the shape of the needlepoint be that way. All right. So I always start with the flat end, and this isn't allowing me to shift the top the way I want to. So this is your chance to get your square here. So we can already see that the rest of it is not exactly... Boy, that glue's been sitting in there cooking for a while. It's brown. Yeah, I left it on overnight. Brilliant. Alright. So one of the things that you need to think about now also is the fabric that you're using. Alright, so now we put this end in and try to nicely center it as well. So if you have a nice squared off piece, like you're able to make your piece nice and square for what you need, because it was out of shape, this supporting piece inside is what is going to give you the square. Ugh, I knew I should have cut those out. They start getting too long and they get all weedy in here. With my hair, can't do anything with them. Alright. And then I go and cut it off and I get mad because then I can't do anything that I want to do with it either. Okay, none of that. Enough of that. Alright. So I'm going to come down and do the curves first. get it stabilized a little bit. I just tell everybody when you're doing a shape to do the parts that are the curve first. With that white on there, it's so funny how it is so hard to see the waste canvas as you're putting it over, because I feel like I got to go back on that side and give it a little more welly. I don't know why this morning my hands are a little shaky today. There we go. That's, you know, it's just part of the issue with these skinny necks is you can't have your canvas too long. It'll jut out past the other side, and then you get all this bulk in there, and it's just not worth it. So for as much as I want to pull as much of that around, I just can't, because it's going to, like I said, add bulk in a manner in which we do not want. That's what I tell them about doing pointy stars, is out at the points, I literally blunt end it about 1/4 of an inch in, and I utilize the canvas to support itself. Any of this detritus, it ends up turning over on itself, and you end up gluing all of these waste canvas bits together. And again, this is a hard corner. These are hard corners because the smaller they are, the harder they are to get pointy. You're trying to get a lot into a small area. So that square, extra square bit going around. Oh, notification came up on my recording computer, and I went, oh shoot, that's better not be telling me I'm out of space. Because it happens. Oh, bugger. So I'm going to put a dollop of glue in there, and I kind of make a V with my fingers, and I push it back. It's about the squarest I can get, especially at the ends. You do have a bevel in there. We do have a little extra bulk that I'm going to chop away on this one, because I can tell he's going to be a problem. And you know, Christy had just said small pieces are so hard. It's funny, you know, I equate it to flower arranging a lot in small pieces. People think, oh, it's small, it's going to be easy. It doesn't make it any easier. If anything, the little ones take a little bit longer, just because you got get a little fussier with them. And you wouldn't think it would be that way, but it totally is. And I know this is probably everything you already know, Christy, but I always love it when you have a slight beveled corner, nubbed corner. It's not really a curve, it's just kind of a blunted corner. And then you have to try to make that corner, make sure that that curve looks kind of the same. Did your person put extra stitches all the way around, or did they just do the design area? Not that it matters, I'm just curious as I'm sitting here doing this. She's got to go get them. Because it's really easy to take that around. See that little nub out? Why are you nubbing out like that? Going to be difficult, apparently. It's probably that turned. I turned this side more. Yeah. I think I turned that a little bit back too much. So I just put my tip on the hot glue area and reignite it. Okay, so let's see, Christy. What do they look like? Do they have the around? They do. Good. Then you're good to go. Cool. All right. Not that every one that's given to you will be, but you know, when I look at this bottle, here I was trying to make them equal. When they're designed and they're stitched, they're not going to be. So here I'm trying to do something that is not actually symmetrical in the first place. All right, so boy, that just looks so wonky when I look at it from camera, but I'll just take it as the wide angle and not get too hyper conscious about it. All right, so here we go. Our options are, so if we did the thick, which I think is way too thick, so this is, I want to say inch, it's not 2 inches, I think it's like 1.5 inches. And yes, you have seen, it's 1.5 inches. You find this at Home Depot. It's what you use for building material. I like this because all of our glues that have the thinners in them, the Fabri-Tac that you might have to use to put the exterior part on, doesn't melt it because it has an additional to it. Chemical, whatever. It doesn't have something in it that our standard stuff has. That's why I tend to shop for this there. The only thing you have to avoid is they have score marks so that you can pop it while you're on the job to make it smaller and to fit into areas. And so, sorry, I gotta close that. I really, if this was a stand-up, I would definitely use the 1.5 inches. I say that, but it just really is pretty thick. They have 1-inch sheets out there, but I'm going to use, this is 1/2 inch. It is the same stuff. It looks like it's the same stuff that you can get at Hobby Lobby, but it's not. It is, like I said, it's made for interior insulation, and I will send you a picture of it so that you know what the label looks like, because it is got that same chemistry in it that it doesn't melt using, I don't remember, it might melt with hot glue. No, it doesn't. It does a little, but not tremendously. I tend not to use the hot glue on this for what we're doing. All right, let me get a hunk of this off since we don't need Like I tell my students in class, take the majority off. Of course, my blade is so tiny. Key is to saw it. Now, I have a hot wire cutter. I find it is very difficult to have stability when you're going around it and the wire flexes and it kind of leaves a rippled edge. That's fine. That's fine for when I'm doing other things that are going to go into something, but we want as nice of an edge as possible so that we don't have a lot of, shall we say, mashing it down when it comes to the next part. All right, so I want to see how this pencil works on it, and it doesn't. And I think I moved all my ballpoints, didn't I? No, there's a nice ugly red one that is waiting to goob up anything that it touches. Perfect. Oh, here's my blue one. All right, we'll use that. All right. So a little under. We don't want to do straight up and down because it has a little edge on it. And if we do that, it'll be way too big for this piece. So when I do this, I don't want to set that and not be able to set it down, not be able to find it again. I quite literally eyeball it and try to just go up and down like a sewing machine, doing tiny, tiny cuts as I'm doing it. Now, I know you're like, I can't see that. Let's see if it'll stay in focus. Sort of. It's going to have to be good enough. Move it back a little. All right. And so I'm just going up and down. Now I know it's not going through the back side, that there's going to be little tick marks along there. That's okay, because we just want to make sure that we get that main line in there. And we try to keep it. So I was trying to think of ways that we could stabilize this. So this blade is going in perfectly. So I have, once I know where my blade's going to be, I could potentially utilize this square pencil sharpener to kind of try to make sure that I'm going perpendicular. So utilize square things within your studio to set next to it to make sure that you're keeping it 90 degrees. I am going to eyeball it. If you try to just pull this through, even with the sharpest blade you might think you have, oof, I'm out of the camera on that, sorry. It's going to popcorn, where it pops all the little bits out. Because what happens is, as the blade goes through, that's why the hot wire is great. As the blade goes through, and you're just pulling, you're compressing that styrofoam. as you're going through, just like when you're trying to bevel and it's not showing you you're not getting a good bevel and it's looking really rough. It's usually because you're compressing that as you're going. You're trying to force it too much and you're not letting your blade slide. Well, unfortunately with this stuff, it doesn't matter how sharp your blade is. It just loves to poof everywhere. So we're not too worried about it. That looks like a pretty good edge. So now we're gonna, and I'm not going to put this, I put this up as a riser so the blade could go all the way through a little nicer and pop off that bottom. I like to do it like this because I can keep my hand steady on my mat to try to keep that at that 90 degree, even if I'm not. That little bit of a rise is just a little too high for me and it's a little too wobbly. With the big pieces, I utilize the retractable, the really thick stuff. I utilize the retractable one. Obviously, I used it on something else and I ate up all my tiny blades. And if you're ever doing the crumbly kind of styrofoam, that's, I don't even have a piece of it over here, that's like traditional styrofoam, and you have a knife that really isn't working well, take a little bit of, most people don't have these around anymore, but that's why I keep a junky candle around. You know how it makes like that squeaky noise and it's just torture on your ears? Well, if you run your blade over the candle wax a couple of times, it will actually stop squeaking. At least not as obnoxious as it was before. So that side head, I started to put it in, but we don't need to worry about that curve at the top. Okay. Now, when you put this together, you might think, oh man, that side is really way too far out. That's the great thing about styrofoam is you can kind of push it and manipulate it, get your curves a little closer to what you want. Oh, I shouldn't let that go too far. So one time I had to use this and I was not good about, I just ripped right through this. And when I ripped right through it, popcorn went everywhere. And we had a Sheltie, and he was resting under my table. And he got up, and it was the static electricity. He looked like he had been out in a snowstorm. It was hilarious. So it can get really messy. Do it in a place where you kind of don't mind. So that is pretty good. Looks pretty square. So the reason why we're trying to keep this nice and clean is because, so back, it was a little longer ago, Now you see all these fine edged pieces that are fabric covered. It used to be that they would do this, then they would just put a piece of ribbon over the top of this and all the way around, and it didn't always look that smooth and great. It was tough, but now we have next leveled it, which I'm very happy about, because I found that those tended to end up deteriorating over time. They would use pins and things like that to hold the ribbon on and not actually attach it in the same way you would. Make sure there's no blue on my fingers from that pen. All right, so now I get to use the pencil again because you can see it on this. This is how we get our back. And you go along it and trace right next to that edge. Make sure, I know you can't see anything. Let me see if I can pull it over here and then turn it a little bit. You're going right and keeping that, because if you make it too small, you know, the Goldilocks principle, got to be just right. So my other friend Marty is going to be not a happy camper when she sees this video, because she just did one of these and I told her to go, well, not this particular bottle or anything, and I think it was a round, and I just had her follow the one that I had online, and she struggled with the loop at the top. She's gonna not be happy. All right, I'm gonna clean up those edges because it was a little wonky where that styro was. So, you know, that really is the hard part of doing this, is that you just can't do your front and your back at the same time, because, and some people may do it and they may have mastered the way to do it to get it perfectly even, but this is just how I do it. And then you do the exact same thing for the front as you, boy, that was really off kilter. Take it from the other way. And for as much as I said, you know, this isn't that easy, and nah. Let's straighten that back up again. I'm still gonna, but using rounds, gonna teach it as a class for the people that have gone through the first two. Yeah, I can't do it from that way. I gotta get my blade under control here. Now again, the nice thing about having our bevel that we're going to do is that if it looks a little big for the back side, we're going to push that bevel around and eliminate it. Anything that goes beyond where we want it. Oh, so Christy bought some foam at Michael's, and she said it was a real mess, and that might be part of the reason, same reasoning we just talked about. It really is interesting, so on how each one behaves, and obnoxiously so behaves. It's like, really? So on this back side, I'm going to try to make sure that my bevels are really clean so that I don't have to put a piece of felt in there so that people can't feel it if it's a little wonky, a little deeper than the way I want it. Because that's the whole reason we put a thin piece of felt on there, is for if our bevels get a little not so hot. Seeing right there, that's a spot that could be a problem, but it's a corner piece, so I think we'll be fine. Okay, so this is the material that I chose for this bottle. It was some that my daughter had actually picked up to have me make a stocking for a friend of hers, and of course, because I'm always so on top of everything, I was grabbing everything at the last second going, geez, I really hope I have fabric in there that'll match. Yeah, that's me. I will say this, I can see the blue lines on here. Do yourself a favor and make a mark so you remember which side goes towards the bottle needlepoint, and you don't inadvertently fight with, because certain shapes, stars and things, you can go, oh my gosh, why is this not turning out correctly? That would be why. Now, the whole reason I started talking about this fabric, I do not know how this is going to do sewing, like hand sewing. It was fine when I did it on the machine for the stocking for my daughter, but there are times where if I have to use a silk, I'm not going to use something that is going to pull, and when I sew it, or I should say, I'm not going to sew it completely because I'm just going to tack down strategic areas to make sure everybody stays where they're supposed to stay. Because if it leaves a severe pull mark, there are certain silks, which I know this is not a silk, it's some kind of weird mix blend. It'll actually make the fabric have a run in it. So as soon as you pierce it, it leaves a little pull. And it's usually the silks that are very smooth. Duponnet, I think that's how you pronounce it, I always say it wrong, usually doesn't do that. At least I haven't had a horrible problem with it. Doesn't mean it can't. It all depends on how coarse the weave is. It doesn't do it on moire. That's why I always loved moire. Now it's ridiculous to attempt to find moire. And so now that I teach people, I teach them all to see. I would have just darted all the way around because I have, you know, ridiculously strong hands and I death grip it and I don't let it move. But now I teach people to get it stabilized on the piece, because otherwise they end up darting too deeply because they like to set it down and pick it up. Or it might not be a matter of like, it could be like with me where I have arthritis and you literally can't hold things for long periods of time anymore without cramping. and it just keeps you from having issues. So I think because of the thickness of the material and the fusible interfacing, we're pretty good as far as not feeling our bevels. Sorry, I'm having like 10 different thoughts at once as I'm doing this. I always, like I said, with the other part of the bottle, the front, I just like to put the curves in first because they require more gather, and sometimes when you do the rest, it eats up that slush of fabric being able to move, especially pointy stars and things like that. And then we just go through and get everything darted. And I know that these are not perfectly straight, and I don't want any little weirdo puckers. So I'm going to cut all those in. This definitely wasn't straight. Take some of that bulk out of there. What is that little bizarre piece right there? Are you glue? Piece of hard glue? Looks like it. I should have cut those tabs down a little. That's okay. So just a reminder, do not do the front, well, always use mat board with mat board, front and back, foam core with foam core, because otherwise, when over time, the mat board can't, the mat board has gases that escape from it, from the compression and everything, but not to the same rate as the foam core. So the foam core, if it doesn't have the front and the back fighting against each other, it will bend and arch over time, especially if it's potentially put into a hot attic for the winter or isn't stored properly in general. Usually people do this on hanging signs, and then you see the hanging sign over time starts to cup. That's why. There is a term for it. My friend's husband works or worked in the industry for a long time of mat boards and I guess production of them, and said, oh, well, this is why, because I was talking about it when she was watching it once. What do I, there's a ton of what in Portland? I didn't see it until I was past what I said, probably. Oh, moire. Oh, wow. That's nice to know. Well, I haven't searched for, well, now I don't usually finish anymore for regular stuff. So, no, but it would be a great resource for people to have if they, to put it out there for people if they sell it online, because I know a lot of finishers, it's hit or miss. They say it's moire and then it's like acetate junk. And nothing is worse than that. I don't like not being able to go someplace to find fabric anymore. I find I end up using other fabrics that maybe I wouldn't like to use as much. Oh, I see. So that's so nice of you, willing to shop for anyone, because they don't have the online store. There's another place, the Fabric Attic. It's used to be in Boston, but it's not anymore. And the problem with them is that they don't have consistent inventory. It's kind of like, okay, we have this lot of fabric, and you might not see the same colors in it again. But since I just do my ornaments now, I just tend not to need it. Now my time is absorbed with trying to customize round balls into the necessary color, because you just didn't look right with that gold, or it just didn't. It's like, man, I thought this would be a lot easier because I'd just be able to pop it on there, and nope, not happening. All right. So the fabric that goes around the center. Now you can just use a grosgrain ribbon. The issue is it can be very difficult to find the right width that you need to fit perfectly. All right. So fits pretty nicely. So I'm just gonna put a bead of this. I'm going to give it a second to cool just a little. Then I'm just going to pop it on here. Make sure nobody's too one way or the other way. So we're going to compress this area and like this bottom corner maybe, because it's not quite perfect. Looks it, but it's, it's like this, all of that I tease about with the Goldilocks principle. You don't want too much of the backside being seen so that there's a huge gutter between the ribbon that you're potentially using and just remember at this point also, I'm not going to go really close to the edge with this, because with the glue is we might, depending on what we decide to use for covering up our mechanics, I don't want to, if I have to marry the cording at the bottom, I need to make sure to leave an allowance to be able to get it in there. So just like you would leave a gap I would leave a gap for the way that I do my hangers, same thing here. you need to leave a little gap for where you're going to begin and end any cording that might go around. I am of the mindset where if I can find a nice flat trim for these edges, I almost would like to do that better. Not only does it add another element, but it is a nice flat blunt, and you don't have this cording that's maybe a little bulbous, so then there's this big gutter in between, you know, it doesn't lay as flat in there. So there are so many trim places that are out there and available. This happens to be from Hobby Lobby. It is about 1/4 of an inch wide. So, I mean, it's like the perfect width to be able to just pop on there and be done. And then we can do maybe a gold twisted cording for the top, which with that you could use a I don't want to say twist, pre-made cording, because I have some really thin cordings out there if you don't want to twist your own. I also have some pearl cotton that kind of matches it. So now is the kind of experimental part. In the past, when I've done these, like I said, so here is, see, and that's just a little too small for my comfort. You know, you're really just covering that so that when you come in and lay this on, it'd be okay. It'd be all right. But that's not obviously the right color because I'm planning on doing it with the fabric turnaround. Let me grab a Grow Grain next size up. Obviously not going to be the right color as well. So it says it's 5/8 inch wide. That's kind of a standard. See? So it's just kind of always not quite there, but there. So you can do it with this and then put your twisted cording, which I had a piece of skinny. Hold on. Told you, ill-prepared, as usual. I did a tidy up. Let's see if I have a piece in here that's thin enough. Okay, so here is, this will be good. I think this is 5 and 5 Krynic number, the middle one. What is that, 12? So if we had, say, that there, then you could put that in, and it'd be a relatively low profile. Okay, it would work. It would do it. And you have a nice little gutter there to boot. But again, any fluctuation in this can be seen through that ribbon. So we're going to do the kind where you use the material. Now, make sure I didn't just accidentally shut something off because I hit my mouse. Where is... Ha! Behind the glue bottle, sorry. So... the time to decide where do we begin and end is upon us, but I don't always like to do it at the top Does she want you to put a, are you allowed to put a bow on these, or is it supposed to be sans bow? Good question, right? Think without, yep. That's the way most of them are now. So it's about 15 and a quarter. Why am I doing this? Well, I have to have a piece of this is how I do it. It isn't necessarily how everybody else does it. Just making sure everybody knows that. So there's a few ways you can do it. And I'm not sure. This looks like it. I think it's 17 inches because it came in my... So this is a type of chipboard. It came... I would use poster board, but of course, this is what happens when I clean. So it has slick on one side, slick on the other side, whatever. That part of it doesn't matter. This is a piece of cardstock. I have also used that. I think it's 80, yeah, that 80 pounds. There you go. I got it out. So we're going to take my beloved ruler that keeps falling over every time I set it down. And we are going to do 5/8 because yeah, I want it to butt right up against it. If I don't do the full 5/8, if I do a full half, it's going to be too big once you put the material on it. So we're going to do the 5/8 just like that ribbon, and with that fold over of it, it should be fine. Should be fine. All right. I love my quilting rulers because I can just hack it off in one fell swoop usually. This one does not have as good a marks. 1, 2, 3. Is that right? Yeah, they don't have as many on the end as they do on the sides. Aren't you brilliant little souls? Well, this one does. So we'll start with this one. He's just a shorty, so I'll have to stop in between. So that's our half. It doesn't have it. Seriously? One, 2, 3, 4. I'm having a brain fart here, guys. Sorry. It is 5. Okay. I'm going 3/8 in my head, not 5/8 when I'm looking at the ruler. It's like, no, no, that's too far. No, no, it's not. Could probably use the long one again. Okay, that popped up. Since it doesn't fit on my mat, I know it is 13 by 19 sheet. And that's good. I always make it too long. And it totally moved. Bugger. Let's see if I got it far enough for the 15 and whatever quarter. So the reason I always, when I'm doing these, I make it longer is so that as I'm going around, it might not measure as neatly as my cloth measuring tape. So it's my 12. And 3 is 5, right? Oh, sorry. Thought the postman was coming to bring me something brilliant. No. And no, of course not. I gotta recut it. Mm-hmm. And that's the side I bunched up. All right, guys, hold on. I know you're regretting this, Christy, because you can't fast forward. Haha. Unlike on my YouTube videos. Oh, she's made a mistake again. All right, 5th eighths, 5th eighths. Here we go. I have a mat cutter that I could be using, but it's kind of cheaty. And it's way over there. All right. So this is the point I kind of need to decide on how this is going to wrap around this piece. I found that sometimes the material isn't going to lend itself. Where did I just put that bugger? There it is. To the curve, to an inner curve. There's your benchmark, okay? Because what happens is it's over there. Okay. So what happens is you 5/8. I am marking the 5/8 line, so when I put it on, if it shifts, I know I have to push it further. So any of these inward angles are going to be the hardest for your material to lay into and not pucker as you do that line. If it's going to keep doing that, next step, we try using a piece that doesn't have the interfacing. If it still does that, then we take some 3M spray glue that we use in photography, also for other things, and spray the board, then lay the material on it so that it cannot do any gapping away from this. But I love it when we're able to not have to do that, and we can just use it with the interfacing, because that also lends it to being able to be sewn. Okay, I'm ready for you to all groan. My nippers are not doing their job anymore, because, you know, heaven forbid it was actually my fault. I'm only going to do enough of a section to get us there. So again, we have to worry about the bulk that we're creating in the middle, or it might not sit down tight enough. can tell this is the end of the material where I didn't necessarily do such a great job with the ironing the interfacing on, but that's okay. The hot glue always makes it go down. Sometimes you have to be careful of doing that whole pencil line trick, because what happens is you can see it through the material. So, and it can also crush what's there. Hello. My daughter just came in. The helper extraordinaire. Without her, I'd have no class packs. Alright. And the reason I'm doing the darting is because, again, anytime you try to do a straight edge like that, at least for me when I was doing belts, you start to do curves and it just inherently doesn't, it creates like a buckle. Now it's a little more typical with the needlepoint side of it and not material, because material isn't, doesn't have the woven base of needlepoint, but I'm really hoping. Now some people might just go, I am doing the spray glue and I am golden. Well, that also has some issues as well. If your material's too thin, it might show through. So it's, again, you've got to test it. And it might be, I like it this way, so when you go around a 90-degree angle, it has the give and the material will pull slightly and become more taut. Whereas if you don't, then it can kind of get funky looking, and if it can't pull along with. And in that references to when I'm doing boxed, like big box stand-up. See? So our curve, where did I just put that? Here it is. Okay, so this is our curve, okay? And it's kind of doing it. I'm going to put some pins in it so I can pull my fingers back and maybe show you the issues. I might be able to make that wider. Well, or just push my gussets in. Gussets. Gussets. Bevels. This is why we love the bevel. Pins, 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 pins. Of course, they have glue all over them, so I'm just going to try to tack these down. See, right there, it seems to want to pucker. And all right. So this material has a bit of a texture to it. So what I was seeing when I was putting it on is it looks like that texture is just rippling up. So I'm going to say go for it like it is. doing it this way. Again, solely for the purpose of being able to bend it as we go and have it become more taut. I may regret this decision because we get to these spots and it starts to lift away. It's a potential issue. But I do want you to see that the difference between the ribbon and the fabric that's on this board is that it really does fill in between the front and the back that little gully. Again, because you can't ever get it to be perfectly perpendicular. So it's just going to hide some more sins. You know what I'm probably thinking about right now, don't you? That I'm just going to spray it and glue it because I don't want to take the chance of, as it goes around, that lifts. I got lucky with a little pumpkin that I did not long ago. I got into that area, but again, I did the spray and that. So let me see, where is it? It is an ancient bottle. And they get really disgusting really fast. So the 3M Super is what I will be using. And I'm going to have to cut another piece of fabric. Make sure there's no scarring because this is a directional fabric with sparkly on one side, or a shimmer, whatever you want to call it. And I have to lay it. You know, if I got to cut another piece of cardboard, then I cut another piece of cardboard. If I do this and I don't like the way it is, then we just redo it. Yeah, so that's the full, yeah, that's 19. Okay. So I'm going to cut this. This is where a rotary cutter would be lovely. So that'll be a good test for whether or not this is going to, if the glue's going to show through. Maybe we should take a smaller piece. I don't think it will, though. All right, so this I'm going to lay from corner to corner, so when I come in, I can completely lay it flat on there. All right, I'm going to pause in kind of one even feld. You can see the texture of the glue, maybe. I don't know if it's not. Ugh, it's all over my fingers. I hate that. Just gonna lay it right on, give it a quick smooth. Then we're gonna pull it over and push down anybody that is like those weirdo ripples that I just pushed down. Now, take a second. I'm gonna take some alcohol and get this stuff off my fingers. Not that it'll work. Oh, it's just so miserable. This is why I have rubber gloves that I always forget to use until after I'm done, because I'm brilliant that way as well. I should hold them with a piece of pliers or something. piece of pliers. Hold the piece using pliers. Of course, I didn't grab the glue gun. Okay. There we go. So now we have something easier to hold on to, because this, that's one of the beautiful things about interfacing, is it really does give material body that needs it. So this is the end that I held on to, so that'll be the end we end with. Again, the reason why we're not cutting it to any exact length is because we don't know how much will really be used up. And with this, I'm not going to dart it because it's so fine and there is nothing there to kink. We're just going to glue it. All right, that's the end. We're going to constantly have to look and see where I am with the camera. I still think this will be... you already tried. Too fine of a schmear. I still think this will help fill that gap, even without the interfacing on it. Now you want to make sure when it's glued on the face that as you're gluing, you're pulling that tight up against the cardboard. You don't want any weird gaps there. Bump outs. Probably not getting it pulled as taut as I could. Ah, it stuck to me. Yeah. I should probably figure out. We'll peel it back. We'll reheat it and peel it back. So that's 15. Yeah, we'll go ahead and glue it all the way up. So, where are we going to start and end? Decisions. I usually start and end at the top because we can hide it with something. But now we have the no bow thrown in. Do you think that your person, Christy, would want like the curly hooks, or is she going to want a traditional corded loop? Not that that'll affect this really, I guess. I'm just trying to, I'm constantly thinking about what the next step will be. And the hanger can potentially be a pain in the butt. Because the way I do it, I take the two ends, I make a loop, bring them back on each other, and tie the two side by side, and then I glue. But that's not going to work for this, so we're going to have to come up with something else, albeit, you know, maybe it's, like I said, ribbon, something like that. Or we do the loop the same way that I was just talking about, and we put a bead where the two ends meet, and then the bead is at the top of the hanger and not down at the base, so we can sew it onto the base. But that could still potentially show mechanics. It is a conundrum. Just can't. What is with you? You just start drying so fast. Okay. Well, let's see how it behaves when it's on the side. 'Cause I'm wondering, I usually, you know, like blunt end this. But I'm thinking if we have a little overlap on this end to feed underneath, it'll be a little nicer transition than two squared off ends coming together. So, because I think I would like to begin and end it at the bottom, because I don't know, I just feel like at the top it's just going to be so much more visible. And I'm not going to put this on and make bends yet until I know. Yeah, just use the glue. Just always use the glue. It is not as thick now as it was though. So we could have done that 1/2 inch and made it butt right up against it without the risk. Are you doing cording on yours, Christy? Okay. So if you did it like this, if you left it at the 5/8 with this little gap, then when you put on your cording, it would have something to sit down into and wouldn't just be hanging out in oblivion. You know what I mean? So here this is like this, so you evenly space it, and it's going to come right down in and make it look like a seamless piece. So yeah, let's do that. I really wish I had gold cording, because the one piece of gold cording I have is not long enough. That's the pre-made to do two sides like that, and that's what it really needs. Let me see. So I'm waiting for some gold from Krynic, because the Krynic that I can just go and get, that's the DMC, it's like really a funky color. And that's too green to me. So all right. So I think that's the exact color. So we'll do cording, and then we'll just do that kind of cording in between. And then that way I don't have to recut this and respray. I think we'll do it at the top, and we'll figure it out when we get to it on how to do our hanger. So I'm going to go this way. Utilizing our when we get to the bottom, because it's rounded, we're going to have to utilize our other thing. But let's just the foam. Let's put our bend in using the edge like that. And now we can over and utilizing, don't use your X-Acto knife if it is metal, because you could leave a streak of gray yucca on it. Alright. It got awfully fuzzy. Alright. So we are going to see. I know I cut some off. I have to test it because I don't remember which glue I need to use, because it melts it. I don't think this does, but I don't want to get all the way around and go, well, that didn't work. No, it doesn't. I thought so. Alright, so I'm going to take a couple pins. And I'm going to put those in the top, like this. Okay, set it like that. And I'm really covering that foam. I'm going to put these right into that material so that as I'm pulling it, it doesn't pull. Give me grief. Okay. And I want to get a pretty decent smear on it. So this is the glue that I use on Limoges boxes and all that good stuff. I like to give it a second to have a little bit of tack to it. Doesn't take long. Make sure that I didn't get anything like so thick it's gonna jelly donut out. Okay. I'm just going to lay it on. As I come by in this curve, I'm going to put a couple pins so they stay where I want them to stay. Sorry, can you even see this? I'm just trying to catch just the edge of that fabric and it keeps eluding me. I think I got it. Okay. Just lay it down. Okay. So yesterday it was freezing out. But today somebody sent some nice warm weather my way. I'm ready for fall. Stop sending it. All right. Should have left the bottle on its side. My very dry hands just caught on the material. I always love materials that snag. Ugh. Such a pain. Okay, I need to shift that forward so that the space that is between the front and the backs is kind of the same. And because I did not put a hard bend in it, it's popping up in the middle. So we're going to put a pin there so it has good adherence as we continue around. It has also done it here. So we need to come back and put a couple pins in while it dries. Now I don't want to push it so hard that it's compressing it deeper and putting like a big old thumb mark on it. And of course the ones that are up here decided to not do as they're told. This is fine. That has no glue on it yet. Take that and try it again. I just don't think I had enough fabric in there. Just went too hard with that. Dang it. I'm pressing too much on that back side. Well, that's why we have our lovely bevel. I'll just push that over in a minute. Sitting here worried about it, and here it just sprung back up again. Thank you, mushy styrofoam. Okay. Really does not take long to dry. Now you can also do this with stacking foam core, but then you have to cut each piece kind of perfectly. And that's not easy. And then you feel like layer bumps. Now this cardboard would help you hide it, definitely, if you were doing that. So again, at the curve. Oh my goodness. Where are my second set of glasses? Can't see that close. Thank you, Progressive Lenses. You get me part of the way, but there. There. Okay. Now, even if it looks a little wonky at the moment, it'll be fine. With the undulating and that the back is this and that. So we're going to push that foam core bevel to the front. And that eliminates the huge majority of our gap. Now, I think you could probably so if I was sewing this, I would have a very hard time because this interfacing that is here, not in here, is not going to lend itself to being sewn. So, because as you pull, as you try to put your needle in, you'd have to make sure to grab underside because you can't pull your needle in under this because it's glued down. So when I do my needle and I come in like this, there's nothing to pull in and under because that glue has it buckled right down to it. So I'm going to put a pin right here to mark where the board ends. Now, lesson to be learned from Kelly's mistakes. You should have not glued from here so that you had a little extra leeway to be able to work with it when you got to the end. It's just easier when you can pull it away and put it back the way you want to. Because, yeah, that ain't happening now. I'm going to take off a bunch of that. I'm going to put some of that under. I'm going to use my doll needle to smear it around back into that corner up on the underside. There's that. So because it is styrofoam underneath here, when I go in and cut that board out of there, again, something I should have potentially done before, we can push, smush down, and you won't have too much bulk at the top because you'll be able to smush it down. And this, we can make sure will sit over the top and not be up too high. There's ways that we can fix these things. All right, so that's my hole where I put it in. I'm going to cut that with my scissors. Then I'm going to take my doll needle and pull my material back. Oh, let's reheat this. Lifts right up. Gotta love that. Now this is going to be the tricky part. I do not know how well this glue that's on the face of it is going to let it go. Sometimes I think my videos are more about things not to do than they are things to do. Because I just popped that right up. Thank you. Sit back down. Yeah, we're going to have to burnish all that down. Yeah, about 1/4 of an I didn't cut through. That is going to go right through. I'm pressing my luck there, just saying. Come on, peel off. I know you will. Because you're not that good at glue. All right. So now I'm going to reheat a little bit of this. Lay that edge down. That. Cut away. Majority. Okay. I'm going to make it into an envelope. I'm going to angle that in. Angle, whoop, cold. Angle that in. That one behaved a little better than the other side. Okay. Like that. Now we can trim that off yet again. Let's see how it turns. Not fabulous, but we'll get it there. It's because there's glue right there that's a little too thick. So I reheat it and turn it. Just like that. It's the wonderful thing about hot glue. And about one of the few things that's wonderful is you can reheat it and manipulate it some more to bend it to your will. And then there are other times it's evil and drops on you and puts a big gaping hole in your hand. Those are just fabulous moments as well. Alright, I'm going to put a little hot glue in there so we can get it to stick down on the fabric that's already down. Boom, like that. It's not a fabulous transition, but I'll get it pressed down. Okay, trying to get just a nicer little corner on that top. I think that's not horrible. I'm going to use a little more of my Fabri-Tac. Like this. And again with the pins. We are going to glue that and that. Okay. And we're going to get this to bend down. Okay. So since we're going to be doing cording, we are going to marry that at the bottom. So I think I am going to do form 4, because this is 3. Gesundheit. Spray glue just does not want to go away from my fingertips. So we have 1, 2, 3. Do 4 and 4. Yeah. Now, I don't envy you 12 to do. Do not envy you at all. What did I do? I know I put there it is, fishing line. Well, if this doesn't send you over the edge, 12, wow. So she basically did the whole series, I'm guessing, but I don't know the whole series, so. And, you know, I have to say, the thought of, I mean, I know that you're going to hand sew them because but if I was advising anybody else that was just doing it for themselves, I'd tell them to glue their cording on. I wouldn't have them, because it's going to be tough. So, and so I give this speech at all of my classes now that everybody needs to stop hating on glue. I had a group of ladies, they were gung-ho, they were gonna do that, they were gonna sew it on, and I was like, okay, but this is your first introduction to a curved needle, so it's gonna be more difficult, and if you decide to call it quits, and you want to finish with glue, I don't blame you. And yeah, that's exactly what happened, because they saw how the other people's turned out and how nice they looked. And so I just tell everybody that when you do, your loop is your most vulnerable point, and you really that's where you need to sew, so that you know that if somebody grabs hold of it and goes woo around their head, that they're, that it's going to be safe. Beyond that, yeah. It's there for a reason. And it is up to you on whether or not you feel it necessary. Usually the people that are true purists don't take my class anyway, because they know that there is hot glue involved on the inside. But I also tell them that, you know, this is an industry-wide product that is used for the Limoges box tops. Oh my God, I hate E6000. It's so runny. Don't ever use that stuff. This works on everything. Because if those things had popped off, I definitely would have heard about it from my the store that I used to go through. And so I am going to show you one side glued and one side sewn so that you guys don't get too bored with me hand sewing. I think my big thing that I also tell everybody is do not ever, ever, ever use hot glue on cording. Number one, it does not give you enough time to work with it. And number two, again, about the storage, if people don't store it correctly, then it will be horrible. And it will break down and potentially cording will fall off. And like my friend who appliqued a bag using it and then was like, I'm sorry, I should have listened. And I went, yes, yes, you should have. So now again, we're going to marry this at the bottom. And you know what I might do? I might play with putting this down the center and then being able to use it as the hanger after. Because then the hanger could come right up the middle like this, and a loop could be made, and it'd be continuous piece. That might be a way to get away with utilizing that. Okay, so we start on the bottom. I'll pull that in a little. Still looks good for. And doll needle. So we got plenty of good room in there. If you want to, you could come along and tack a couple in a couple of spots to make sure, if you're worried that it's not going to stay together, you know, go ahead, go for it. It's okay. Don't believe me. I love you. I'd never lead you astray. No, I'm just kidding. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to flatten this piece when I'm trying to put this in. So, because that's where the tell is going to be for where it gets married if we're not careful. Okay? Oof. And I pulled it right out. Dang it. Because what I found doing boxed and things like that is you make your void underneath, so when you're sliding them next to each other you can kind of continue to do it just like you would do a big pillow. Okay, so always from the front or the side of. I like to keep the glue over the material area. Make sure your hand is stabilized as you're doing this. Nice and thin, less is more. If you need, I'd rather have you come back. I mean, that's, I don't know if I'm catching the light with it to show you how skinny that is. It is going just in that gutter only. And we're laying it on, holding it down a little, not too much where it's gonna really make that depress. And we put a pin straight down through it so as we continue around, it doesn't fall forward and put glue all over our stuff. Okay? I probably could have went a little skinnier with that cording. It's always hard to gauge. Number 3. So obviously when you're sewing this, now I just did a really big, long, yeah. If you haven't done this before, keep it in the 1.5 inch range. Okay. And then put your pin in it. I mean, don't do as long of a bead as I just did. Always come back. And touch it to make sure you're getting good adherence. Right. And as always, when you're putting cording on, keep twisting it, because it loves to untwist as you go around something. All right, whenever there's a deep V area, always make sure to pin it so it stays down in that area. Okay, I have to move this guy. And, oops, sorry guys, didn't know he was out of focus. All right. So basically, when you put your cording on and you're sewing, you're going to be coming in and out of your stitching and on the back side more than you are trying to grab that middle piece, because there is no place for you to kind of put anything. Your needle can't go into this part very easily unless you can grab that underside, which we will do on the back. One of the other tricks that I learned with this glue is that buy the tiny bottle and buy the big bottle, and then just keep refilling the tiny bottle because it has a tiny nozzle. Okay. Flip, just like that. So then once it's set, what I do is I pull and see if any of the glue is not completely stuck down. And then I go back in from the back side and lay more glue in there. And where did it end? Way back there. Okay. Mm-hmm. They also do have refillable bottles that have the tiny, tiny nose needles. As well. I think I showed that one in the, okay, I'm not going to lay that all the way down because I want to put the knot on it and everything. I think I just got some of that residual glue on there. Oof. About 1/4 of an inch past. Let me do this. This. All right. Velvet. Glue it. And we smash it. We arrowhead it. That's why I use nip scissors usually. Okay. So now, let's see how well that's. It's too dry now at this point. And so put glue too close. Still rubbery enough, I can still get in there. Bring it in. shove it in there. And then we're going to pull this side under like that. Under some more, guys. Get that off there. Let me turn it around again. I think we should push it under some more. Just like that. Not perfect, but pretty good. Sorry. Kind of off the screen for you. Okay. Alright, so that is all married together. I still need to put a tiny bit of glue in here. And roll it back on top of it. Pull that little bead down like that. There. All right. It's down and dusted. Okay. Oh, and pull you forward. And I need to put a little glue under you. Push that like that. All right. Let's make another piece of cording. Way too much cording on these things. One, two, three, four. One, two, three. Okay. So, you're fine. You know, so Christy uses a straight needle because she hasn't been able to master the curved needle, and it's not easy. So I have been thinking about it, and I'm thinking of doing a club for the people that want to learn straight needle or curved needle, and breaking it down so that instead of trying it to do it with right off the bat in this, learning to maneuver it, doing other things. It's like, why are we jumping off of the platform before the train comes? We don't know how to utilize it. twist this up. One, two, three, four. Oh, twisted cord. Blech. I kind of think that the way this cording turns out a little rougher is almost looks like frilly edging instead of the way cording normally looks. I don't hate it. Masking tape. And why am I not using a drill? Because I can do it just as fast as when we do a drill by hand. It just isn't as refined. But for this, I think it's fine. It's just as tight. It just aligns it a little differently because of the revolutions that it can do. And you just keep twisting until it hurts your hands. All right. Okay. I'm like, why does that one look thicker than this one? Don't ask why, Kelly. Because I can't count. Maybe. That's potentially it right there. No, I don't need this yet. Oh. Trying to go back and forth is messing with my head. All right. Nope, not that one. There we go. I thought you were back already. You just scared the heck out of me. 3, 4, and knot. 1, 3, 4, knot. All right. Set the knot. That can go. It's all good. All right. Can I let this go? Yes. Okay. So. Need to stop being difficult. Okay. So when I sew this on, I'm going to see if I can grab on the underside of this and see what it does. Okay. So there's a little pull. It might be too hard for you to see. Not too bad, but I look at where the fishing line is and I come back like it's a back stitch. And I come around. And I'm only going to do that a couple times periodically where I come up through the back. Okay. Just to make sure. Oof. Got some serious glue there. Shoot, I just frayed it. Okay. Shoot. So the issue with the Krynic tool that I find is it's only made to use for 5 strands and under. You just, if you want the tightest cording you ever can get, you need to do the drill. It's incredible. And I usually show it to everyone in my classes just for that reason. But because I've tried them all. And you use, I just tell people, use what works for you. Everyone has a favorite way of doing things, and that's cool. So if you were doing this as a stand-up, you would create a void in your styrofoam down at the base, and you'd make a little plate to go across the bottom. You'd begin and end your pieces here, and then make a foam core base covered in fabric so that it actually stays truly straight, and bury your cording in those spots. Don't have your cording go across the bottom, because as you can see with this, it won't be a flat bottom anymore. So you either put some feet on it or something like that. And it can just be those little button feet. It doesn't even have to be like big beady feet. Oh my goodness, I've gone right out of camera shot. Sorry guys, not that you're still listening. Just snagged it. Dang it. So I can see that my cording is kind of pulling away in that curve, so all you have to do is push it with your finger and it'll roll it back in towards it. But then it falls too far in the gutter too. It'll be fine. So definitely if you think you can get away with the not gluing the board, the material directly to the board if you're going to sew it on, because you don't have that issue on the back side of this, but our front side, because we can't grab into the back enough, it's not pulling it down tightly. It feels like that board is recessing more. But then again, I'm a bit of a nitpicker, so for myself. There we go. I'm like, why is that being funky? Oh, that's why. Let's see, got a little material pull there. Let's pop that. Got a little folded under there. Now, I know there those of you out there watching this going, yeah, I'm gluing. Definitely no judgment there. And I got a knot in it. Great. Oh, the joys. Yeah, I'm pushing my luck. I'm not redoing it. I'm letting that knot continue on. All right. So we go a little further than we do with this. I'm going to knot it off. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Except this time we'll just have a big old thing in our way. Needing more fishing line. Smash it. All right, we are in the home stretch. Open this up. And pop that down under like that. Bring this back up a little. Push this down that. I think I needed to put that. There we go. Like that. Boom. Married. Through here. And come up there. And We're just kind of lacing it back and forth. You can see how badly this material pulls. It's nice material, it's just without interfacing on it on this interior side. We're going to have a little, I'll go after it in a second with my, there, dowel needle. Okay. Come back. I'm actually going to go all the way to that front piece. Come up over here. Sometimes you have to go past it and double back on it to get it to do what you want it to do. And then you come up and grab a little more of this back side. This side is definitely not as neat as the front side at this moment. Because it really bends the foam core and kind of gets a little misshapen sometimes. You just go back and push it all back down the way you want it, but still. Alright, we're going to knot it off. I'm very grateful that is over with. There you go, 1, 2, 2, 3, around like you're doing a French knot, sorta. And then we pull it up through the front to bury the knot. Oof, and look at that, I just created a big old puff ball. Wonderful. Get back down in there. Alright. So part of the issue with my little derpy backside is that instead of putting it underneath between this cardboard piece and the foam, I went straight down in. So it's more difficult. It shows a little bit more. Little bug. Of course you decide to start flying over my face now. So here we go. Very cute. Now we are definitely going to utilize this trim to help us get, well, let's look at it now that it's on. Will it be too much? I don't think so. I don't think so. So I'm gonna put a little hot glue on this end to keep it from fraying. Plus, it hides a few of our sins, doesn't it? It does. And we can take this, slide it under there a little. Why not? Utilize our pin. So I've slid it up under that little lip, right? And come on. Now you could use a piece of, you could use a ribbon. I've done it with ribbon. You don't have to necessarily, you can layer a couple different kinds on top of each other. Grosgrain is fabulous for keeping out the glue. Chiffon's not so much. So some people like to do the little pins and things like that. I tend not to do that because I really worry about little kids. Because I was one of those kids that used to take things apart and put them back together, and yeah, using them as the only source of keeping them in is not, keeping it on is not a good practice. Plus, the styrofoam that's on the interior does lose gas over time and can make it so that it's a problem. When the pins start, when the gases start to go away, it will. I'm not sure how I want to end this yet, so I'm not cutting it yet. You have decided to be a kind of a jerk of a glue bottle right now. All right. Now the question about how we're going to finish this off is at hand. So The issue with this particular trim is it has a front and a back. So if we just bring it up like this, it's going to have an obvious, it's going to be obvious. So what we do in the floral world is we twist, crimp and twist it. Oh, bugger. Come on off. So I'm pinching it, twisting it. I will come back really. Apparently not a very good pin if it can't even pin into that. Now it's getting all shifty. Hold on. There. Like that. Then I can bring it up like this. And have an ending to it. And I might actually twist it a little earlier so it hangs in the center. All right. Now, if you didn't want to do the trim, okay, you could take a piece of wire and bend it in half and put it down in so you had a loop so that you could then utilize one of the curly Q loops. The other option is one that we talked about earlier. That is, where did I put it? And I had one left. Where's it? Okay. So this is a large bore hole bead. I get them at Fire Mountain website, bead company. And what we can do is we can make our loop. We put the bead, well, let me just get this established, hold on. So I'm gonna tie them together side by side, not stacked on top of each other, okay? If I had known I was doing this with this, I would have made this feed longer. And I've already messed it up. Guess why? the bead's not on it, I can't back it down over it. And of course this lets go, but that's okay because we're going to put some glue in it. This is engineering on the fly, because you could take this and make a little loop at the bottom and feed another one through it. I mean, there's a few different ways that I can think of that would sort of work. See, and I don't even know if that's going to work. Oh yeah, it will, because we'll have two. So sometimes you can get silver, they're like they're spacers that go between beads, and they have the same large bore on them. And you can get them in small lengths that you could literally sew it flat across the top. So it's like just a small length so that it would give a finished spot for what we're about to do. All right, so we're gonna go like that. A little smaller. Doesn't have to be giant, right? Because usually what I do is show you better because you can't see. I'm like, wait a minute. This is why we got to fix your mic or figure out what I'm doing wrong, because yeah, I don't read when I'm doing this, and then 20 minutes later I'm still not on camera. Okay, so we're going to tie this like this. Like that. Try to have them next to each other. It's still going to be too big. So this is what I do to make the loop. The bead withstanding, okay? And I cut these off. That. And then, yeah, because that's going to be way too big. I put some glue on. Like this. And I get some, I know it's disgusting, some spit on my finger so that it doesn't stick and do that thing that it just did. And I roll it as flat as possible. All right. Now, this is where you could take and divide one of these out and utilize this. Oof. Oh. Let's just do it. I'm not going to take it off and cut it off because it'll unfurl completely. We're just going to have to punt with it and work with the craziness that's down there. It's easier with Krynic because Krynic doesn't unfurl like this would. And you're just going to, oh, crust. Come on, buddy, stick down. There. Take this. You're just going to start winding it around to cover. Well, if my stuff would stop fraying. And pull it tight as you're doing it. If I have to, I'll go back and cut those little bits off. And you're just going along and covering that with a fiber, okay? I'm sorry that I can't give you a more concrete, this is how you do it, this is the way everybody does it, because every project is not the same. It's just not. And you have to figure out ways to do it that work. See, I would have put like little tiny bow or something, a little knot over if they were really fussing about having nothing there. Just to try to figure out something, some way. Not sure I can get it in this. No. Dull needle to the rescue. Okay. Take it. I'm going to attempt there. Cutting off that glue because it'll never go through if I don't. And I bury it up in the center. Cut it off. And then push that down in and bury it on the underside when you sew it on. But a little more work and I can get that to not even show. Okay, now yes, looks a little wonky on that glue spot right there, so we move that one up. It's because I didn't twist it as I was putting it on. Anyway, so covering it up with that, covering it up, that looks terrible. Don't do that. But covering it up with a mechanic of some kind whether it's this, we'll put the bead over it. I just don't think it's going to sit right because it's so, this fiber is so thin. Let's take it off here. Okay. You wonder why things take me so long to do. Because you got to punt. There. Alright. So the easiest thing would be to have a thick enough cording that was up there, which would mean you'd have to make something yourself so this didn't, you know, show such a huge profile. And then you'd be able to just bring it and see, that's why you got to get one of those bead spacer things. Or you just sew it on there and end up with a bead at the top to cover your mechanics. Again, you can get smaller beads that would work better than this, obviously. But this is what I use for when... Alright, I'll show you what my friend Marty did the other day, because I was traveling and I didn't get back to her, and she was so very proud of herself for figuring out a way to do this. And she did a great job. So we're going to take this, pop that off. Take some fishing line. Tie it off. Like this, okay? Go like that. Take our glue. You're going to go, Kelly, why didn't you just do this in the first place? Well, there's a reason why. Because I'm just not sure how... So she used the faux knot over at the base of it. We're going to utilize that bead that's right there. But I'm going to go like that. We're going to come and take our piece and going to double back on itself. You know what I'm going to do first before I do any more cutting? Of course, I buried that with some glue in there, didn't I? That'll be okay. It's a dangerous option in my... What I do with my X-Acto. There it is. It's not dangerous, it's just unplanned. Take my doll needle. Try to open it up a little so it's not quite so hard to cram in there, right? Now, should have planned a little better for the direction of our loop. but I'm destroying this. All right. It's too long. Putting an X in there so that I can create a round hole. Okay. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. That works better. Fill it with some of this as a little extra. Come on. There we go. All right. I'm putting that needle right in above the fishing line and pushing down in to get it to move where I want it to move. Okay. All right. So now we're going to have that cut there. Bring it right up to it. I'm going to put a little on the bits that are here. Lay that down right next to it. All right, this is where the magnificent bead trick is gonna be the fabulous winner of this. Now, once I get it on and stabilized, I'm gonna put a couple of stitches in, probably kind of back and forth from front to back. Grab, some of the needlepoint backings, a little of this maybe, so that it has been stuck in, stitched in a little bit. It's gonna be tough. I'm not gonna lie. It's not gonna want to do it. So we take our piece of fishing line and we use it like a needle threader. Like that. And put the large bore on that. Pull on them equally. Come on, you. Scooch it, and bam. Now, again, if you use a little thicker cording, it will cinch down there so tightly that you won't see any of your base at all. Okay. It isn't easy in the respect of trying to finish it, because I don't think that the seam at the bottom would be as attractive. So that's why we opted for the top. And I mean, it's cute enough. I don't mind the bead. I just would like to do one. Oh, well. Why are we being silly about this? Because that's just how I am. Let me do 1, 2, 3. Let's bulk it up and use the cute pink instead. Can you tell I'm getting tired? Getting a little punchy. All right. Yeah, we don't need, it's a bottle. The loop does not need to be huge. So if nothing else today, you've gotten some ideas on how to do this, and if you come up with a kabam way to finish off the tops, I'd love to see it, because this is the thing that I battle with the most, is with people not wanting bows. I get it, but again, it's the hiding your mechanics and making it look professional that is really hard. So you end up not maybe doing things the way you would normally do them. I think this could work. Because why does it have to be gold? It doesn't have to be gold. All right, so I'm going to really shove it in there so that I can kind of lift it up and have this pop up a little bit. Right? That. Kind of cute when it looks continuous. And then we put our fishing line up. And it looks like it won't fit on, but if you just pull, see, just enough that it cinches it right down to it. I don't even mind that it's silver versus gold. I think it kind of goes. Okay, so that's it. And that's how you do a boxed piece. So, all right, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you, Christy, for coming and requesting this finish. My friend Mary will be thrilled because she just had a stash of needlepoint that she left with me and was like, I'll come back and do it. And I keep going and using it all for samples like this, and people request something and go, I got something that'll work. So now I want to see some progress from you, Christy. I hope you'll tag us and let us see what you're doing. And even if you've, because I know you're going to do this. I know you can get this. If you're doing everything else, it's just a matter of, you'll get a couple under your belt and you'll get it. I have confidence that you'll get it. So, all right, I'm going to stop recording, and everyone else have a wonderful evening, and don't forget to find me on Instagram and Facebook under Stark Art Designs. Stark Art is the YouTube channel. Stark Art Designs is the Facebook and the Instagram. Thank you very much.